Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have a special treat. We have author Camille St. Charles. Listen, guys, she is a romance author, but let me get her titles correct because she is a romantic and erotic architect. We are in for a treat. She is a novelist. She has written a cookbook. She's a podcaster and a coffee connoisseur, and she has lots of stories to share with us. But tonight we're going to be talking about her newest book called Coffee Tales. Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show, Camille St. Charles. How are you?
Doing well, Kimberly and Kimberly's crowd, her fans. I am doing well. I'm doing well.
Wonderful. All right, so let's get right to it because I have been looking forward to this all week. Tell us, first off, what is Coffee Tales? And then what inspired you to add coffee to romance? Who knew?
Well, my latest book is titled Coffee Fairytales. It's where I used to be a coffee vendor and I brought the coffees to life and I turned them into people, and they deal with accessories. They have love interests, love affairs with sugar, salt, honey, whipped cream, all of those accessories and trappings that all of us add to our coffee. So I I used to be a coffee vendor, and when God whispered to me to consider doing that, it took me a moment, but it happened right around COVID. It took me a moment to wrap my mind around what God was saying, because I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me I should make the coffees real people? God said, yes. And I said, but what are they going to be doing? Where better to fall in love than in a story and a book titled After Coffee? So I call them Coffee Fairy Tales. And like I said, I did struggle because I come from the world of erotica, and sex and violence and vulgarity is always on the forefront. But
Mm.
I needed a softer, more elegant and dainty aspect of me to tell these stories, because, I'm unsure if too many people would listen to or read. I'm coming from the world of erotica. My name is Camille. So the softer aspect, the goddess that lives in me, stepped forward. And
Wow.
her name is Lady Blue Nightingale. She's the
Ooh.
one that's telling you these romantic stories titled After Fee. And, she's royal and regal. This is Lady Blue Nightingale.
Wow, she's beautiful. Okay,
Thank
so what's the inspiration for the clothing? Is that fairy tale? Is that
Fairy
something?
tales.
Ah,
Fairy
so we're
tale
talking,
royal. Huh?
we're talking fairy tale royalty because that's what I was thinking. I was like, is
Yes.
this prince and
Yeah.
princesses?
Yes. Yes,
Oh.
royalty. And the lady that's on the cover, she owns a coffee company, and I used to work for her company, and
Mhm.
I was telling her what I was thinking of, and she just sat there smiling like, that's so clever. I like that. And then I had said to her, would she consider being one of the faces in my book? Because although I'm in the process of constructing the stories, I don't have an idea of what the people actually would look like.
Mm.
So she said, she was the first person that said yes. And then I started testing out, my requests with other friends, and they all said yes. And once they finally understood, I said, well, you're a coffee, because Venetia, the lady that's on the cover, she's
Mhm.
cinnamon. She's the cinnamon covered coffee, cinnamon flavored coffee.
Ah.
So she's a queen inside of this story. And I said, oh, she needs to be on the cover. Oh, because she is so royal and regal, and it
Mhm.
looks like a fairy tale.
Mhm.
And I was having flashbacks from my youth of when I used to read those Aesop fables and all of those grim fairy tales, and what the books look like, what the pictures look like, the caliber and the quality and the richness that I felt as I was turning the pages, and I wanted to portray the same thing. And someone had made a mention that, why are all your characters people of color? I said it was purely accidental. I said, but have you ever looked at a cup of coffee? I said, it wasn't intentional. It's just I needed a representation. And I have 3 people that desire to be in my next volume of Coffee Fairy Tales. They've already put their bids in. They were like, listen, I want to portray this person. I want to be that coffee. And I found that so fascinating. But, Coffee Fairy Tales, we're better to fall in love, because I have found when I'm a coffee drinker, I am a coffee connoisseur. And every day I sit down and I drink my coffee, and I'm sitting there blowing and whispering some things that are troubling me or concerning me. And so, coffee is sitting there listening like, oh. And then coffee said one day, let me tell you a love story. And I was like, oh. So as I started writing them down, because the coffee would say to me, if I was a real person, this is what's going on in my life. This is what's happening. But it's a love story. Make no mistake. They're all love stories. The happy endings are totally different inside of each story, but romance is on the forefront. And Lady Blue just ushered the readers to the love arena, because I'm familiar with the sex, violence, and vulgarity arena. Lady Blue Nightingale ushers you, and she's basically like your tour guide and telling you, she's like a fairy godmother. So she's telling you, hey, sit down and read this story. It's going to be very, very inspiring, even though it's just coffee talking to you, but coffee is telling you what they look like, what's going on in their lives, what's troubling and concerning them, and how love has passed them by also. So each one of the characters are people of a certain age. I wanted people in the middle of their lives. I wanted someone that's had some battle scars, that's done some things, that's been involved in some provocative misunderstandings or miscommunications. People that have battle scars. I need you to have some scars. I'm not dismissing or discounting the youth, but they have their arena. This is the arena for people of a certain age. I needed middle-aged people. And when I sat down to talk with them about how they felt love treated them or didn't treat them well, all these little stories and these scenarios were forming in my mind. And I was like, ooh, I want to go back, and let's go back and rediscover that love. Even though you're older, the feeling in your heart and in your head is still like it was when you were a youngster, when you were in the prime of your life and you put those desires and hopes and wishes and dreams out into the universe. When you put them out there, the desire was paramount. But now that you're older, the desire is still there. It's for people that have lost love, widowed, divorced, miscommunication, just all manners of chaos showed up and made these people alone. But when love repositions herself and comes back and revisits with them, they are different people, but they're the same. They're different because they've got a lot more life experiences, but that hunger that they wanted at a young age is still there. So love goes back and say, well, let's go back and rediscover this. Let's see what it feels like now that you're older and you can really, really appreciate it. So
I love it. Okay, so I want to go back to a couple of things, because I'm so glad that you touched on the fact that these are people of color. Yes. Because oftentimes, when we read stories, especially romance stories, when you go into the store, I don't care if it's the drugstore, it's an actual bookstore, we see rows and rows of books, and they never represent people of color, yes. And I've read lots of books and they've been very good. However, I've always wanted to be that character where I could really see myself, where that person has color in their skin and some of the mannerisms that people of color have, which I know you are great at
yeah.
incorporating that. That is wonderful. The second thing I wanted to say, I love the fact that you talk about middle-aged women
Yes.
because, Hollywood has this conversation, and there are a few people who really talked about it. At a certain point, when you're over the age, and I don't even consider the age of 40 being middle age, but I know
Me
some
either.
people
Me
do.
either. Yeah.
I don't. But a lot of women in Hollywood will say, well, if you're over the age of 40 or you're 40 and over, you're done. No one wants to talk to you. Nobody thinks that you're sexy. However, there are whole cable networks that have Hollywood actresses who are considered quote unquote has-beens. They're not at the height of their game, but they make these sweet little romantic movies that people adore.
Yes.
And the fact that you have taken one of my loves, because I call coffee happiness in a cup, when you were talking about it and you said, I love to sit and sip my coffee and I'm thinking, and oftentimes when you're with your coffee, whether you're driving, you're walking with it, your mind is going, you're thinking about something. And for a lot of women who drink coffee, they will tell you coffee is what relaxes me. And
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with people who will say, but why is it? I said, because it's happiness in a cup. I said, leave it alone. Stop trying to figure it out. It's happiness in a cup. But I think that it's great that you've taken the character of coffee and given it personality traits. Because, for example, so I'm going to name off some coffees that I love. Cafe Mocha is my favorite. That's espresso, chocolate, steamed milk. I don't know if you have that in your book. Americano, blonde espresso. For those that like that lighter version of coffee, it's a very pale coffee. You can have the darkest and the richest roast to the lightest of the roast. And when you talk to people who love coffee, they will tell you
Yes.
typically what their favorites are.
Yes.
And whatever their favorite is typically goes with their personality. So it is interesting to say that. But now I want to go back to something else that you were talking about, how people were finding love. And you talked about coming from the world of erotica, where sex, violence, and vulgarity is sort of at the forefront. And you have a couple series that I neglected to mention in the beginning. One is the R series, which is rated R for Roxanne. And you also wrote the dessert novella cookbook, which was a wonderful book. And it was racy. I was like, ooh, wow, never thought of yams like that. Oh, my goodness. Talk to us when you're utilizing foods and coffee, how you sort of determine what that personality is, and how you, not giving away your secrets, but how you weave that where it becomes so relatable. For people that love food, good food, Dessert Novella is their book. For people that love coffee, this is going to be a must read. Talk a little bit about that.
Sitting here listening to you, I was like, oh my God, I never gave that too much thought, because both of them are two inanimate objects. But the springboard came from my Roxanne series was my first series. And I was just bursting on the scenes, trying to find my way. And my character started telling me or saying, if this was actually a conversation that I was going to have, this is what I'd be saying. So I started off by Roxanne telling me how she looks, what's going on in her life. It did not mirror my life, but aspects of it did, because I borrowed from parts of my life. And so Roxanne she's very mellow individual, but there is a violent thread that runs through her. And it takes certain things to trigger her. So once she's triggered and activated, then that's when the violence and the vulgarity shows up, because she curses like a sailor. But she has to deal with 30 different people. And I just put in reverse the life that I had in California and the things that I used to do. So I took some of the chaos and the drama from my life in California, and I just flipped it and gave it to Roxanne and made her a Lexus car dealership owner. So
Ooh.
therefore, the name on the marquee says Rock Saga Lexus. So people think that they're always in the process of dealing with a man, but it's a woman behind the facade of whatever you see. And they are shocked when they meet Roxanne, because a woman of color steps up, and you can see them, like, no, I don't want to talk to the secretary or whatever. I want to talk to the boss. And she would often say, I am the boss. I am. This is Roxanne, Rock Saga, Lexus. What can I do for you? So that freaked a lot of people out, but I gave her power. I empower all of my characters, and I love that. So then when I flipped the script and Dessert Novella showed up, it wasn't from me. It showed up from something that my sister had told me. I had told you of the crazy stuff that was going on in her life. And she was making me aware of how disappointed she was that her life wasn't turning out the way she wanted it to. And she wanted this guy and all of the things that went on with his life, but she wanted to switch positions. She no longer wanted to be the lover. She wanted to be the wife. And I was like, I said, sometimes, not dismissing or discounting marriage, because I've been married for years. But sometimes marriage is overrated. When he comes to see you, you are his dessert. He already has the meat and the potatoes of his life with the wife and the kids. He's got the girlfriend, the salad and the breadsticks. I said, you are his dessert. And she told me she wasn't understanding that. So therefore, I went back and wrote her a story. And I said, this is what dessert brings to the table. Because dessert walks in the door saying, I know you've been waiting on me.
Right.
I'm here because I know you've nibbled on some of the foods that's on your plate, but I'm here now. I'm not concerned about your health. I don't care. I'm not concerned about your wife. You're wasting my time. I am dessert. You knew what I was when I walked in the door, so treat me accordingly. So that's how the dessert novellas came to the forefront. And I said, I love desserts because, my body shows that I love desserts. And I was like, what? Why can't I write naughty little stories titled after world famous desserts? So I sat down and wrote some stories. Some of them are really long and some of them are really quick. And so the ones that are really quick, I do a dessert novella suite podcast where I tell you the story. You get to hear me. You get to hear all the highs and lows and all the in-betweens of me telling you the story, because I do a podcast. And that's how those two series were born. But when in the midst of COVID, it was actually the end of 2019, and I was a coffee vendor. I was like, after I kept playing with the thought that God had placed before me, and I kept saying, now, God, they're going to think I'm crazy, right? I've already written stories about desserts, and I already have my Roxanne. Now you're telling me you believe I should make coffee come to life, right? I was just questioning the Lord, like, right? God said, okay, who am I? Okay. So I sat down, I wrote the coffees out. I knew I wanted certain coffees to encounter and experience. So I just wrote a little bullet points of things that I wanted each coffee to encounter. And then when I sat down to write House Blend, that's the only one I wrote. After I finished that one, I checked that off my list and I just moved on from coffee to coffee to coffee. And when I got to like my second or third coffee, I started falling in love inside my own stories.
Wow.
It has all of the trappings of all of those Harlequin romances and the
Mm-hmm.
chance encounters, the chance meeting, the magic, the moonlights, and the miracles. They're all inside of Coffee Fairy Tales. So,
Wow. That is amazing. You make such great, relatable, and memorable characters. Camille, what sets you apart from other novelists?
mm, I have a wild sense of humor. I totally enjoy, I actively seek out laughter. I put out good vibes. I'm not hating on anybody. And then when the haters do come for me, it sort of, it sort of shocks my system.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I know that I'm a different star. I'm a different little duck. I'm not, I used to liken myself to the girl next door because that's what I would call myself. I didn't believe that there was anything out of the ordinary about me. I'm just the girl next door. And I was being interviewed by somebody, and they said to me, "You're not a girl, you're a goddess." And I was
Ooh,
like, "Ooh, the goddess next door." I like
I
that.
like it. You need to make that a story. You need to make that a story.
I said, "The goddess next
Mm.
door." So when I'm going out and I'm talking to people, I say, "Oh, you're talking to the goddess that lives in me." Especially if we're talking about coffee fairy tales. I said, "But
Mm.
even though I come from the world of erotica, I still love romance. Still like a door being held open for me. I like
Mhm.
you commenting about what I'm wearing or my hair or if I smell delicious. I like all of those trappings that ladies love and
Yes.
they drink it up.
Mhm.
So I was like, I'm going to put that softer side of myself inside of Coffee Fairy Tales. And all of the ladies are ladies, but they all have diabolical minds, and they're making you aware that I'm not going to do what everybody else wants me to do because I've done that.
Mhm.
I'm at
Mhm.
a place in my life now where if I don't stand up for me, I'll get pushed to the back again and I'll do everything that everybody wants me to do for them. But this time, I want something for myself. I need something that's going to seal the deal from me. So each one of the characters has a defining moment that shows up for each and every one of them. And you'll see it. You get to encounter and experience it. And you'd be like, yeah, it's about time because if you continue to allow love to slip past you, it will.
Mhm.
If you actively seek it out, love will be like, oh, hey, girl, so you've been looking for? Here I am, girl. Come on with it. Come on. What do you want to
Mhm.
do? What do you want to experience? And, sometimes the love doesn't last as long as you would hope, but it's still love nevertheless. It
Mhm.
still gives you that that smitten feeling. It makes you feel all warm and cozy. And when you were young and you were discovering that you liked this guy and he liked you and you all were passing notes to one another in class and
Mhm.
he wants to hold your books and walk you to class or you want to wear his jacket, or he's inviting you to come to the dance or a football game. All of those feelings of youth, they never left the middle-aged person. It's still there.
Mhm.
It's in a different package.
Yes.
So it's still there. It's still love, nevertheless. It's just it's different, but it's
I
still love.
love it. I love it. This is amazing. All right. So, as an author, what message or experience do you want your readers to take away from your stories, your books?
Well, for the coffee fairy tales, I want you to know that it's never too late. It's never too late. Even though your heart has been broken, you feel as if love never called your name. It's like stepping up to form teams of playing basketball or kickball or dodgeball, but nobody ever calls your name. Now you're
Mhm.
still standing on the sidelines like, he and nobody puts that person in. So they sit there and they are continually nursing a broken heart. I wanted you to know what it felt like for love to stop and say, oh, I heard you. I heard your prayers and I heard your requests years ago, but you didn't act like you actively wanted me. So I just kept going. But here you
Wow.
are now saying the same thing, and love sees the little girl that lives in you, or the young man that lives in you. Love sees that, and love says, oh, really? Let me show you something. And love makes it so that it might not be the person that you actually fell in love with years ago, but it's a different person, but the feeling is still the same. And I wanted you to enjoy that. We're better to fall in love than over a cup of coffee. We're better. So, because you're already telling coffee knows all your secrets, all of your hurts, your misgivings. So coffee's like, well, if it was me, this is what's going on in my life. So read with me. And for my dessert novellas, that was just fun. It was just fun to categorize love and place it in, in the food arena. Like, but I'm dessert. Love is like, listen, all of the meat and the potatoes and the salads and all the other stuff and the drink, that's all well and good. But we all know what you're here for. I'm here for this, because when I can't speak for anybody else. When I go out to eat dinner and I'm going to dine on a fancy meal, like I'm going to Ruth Chris or something like that, and I'm eating all of my bread and my salad, and I got my tea or my wine, I got the porterhouse steak, all that's cool, But when dessert shows up,
oh man.
stop the press.
Yes.
Dessert is like, I'm here, girl. So my other food, I will just put it in a to-go bag because I'll take that with me. I want that dessert. I want that something succulent and delicious that's going to whip me into a frenzy and, give me that kiss. Because that's what the dessert does. Dessert be like, oh, I don't really care about all the other stuff. You know what I am. Now, if you're worried about your caloric intake and your high blood pressure and all other stuff, I'm not the chick for you. I'm not. So you don't need to be eating me if you are going to be concerned about that. So dessert novella is like, let's go have some fun. Dessert novella invites you out to come play. Like, come on, let me tell you a naughty little story, because all of the stories are naughty. Sex is on the forefront. Sex is paramount inside of each and every dessert novellas. And Roxanne, I wanted a woman of color to be in charge, because we have a tendency sometimes we get overlooked, or we are deemed as difficult or challenging to deal with. I'm not difficult. I'm telling you my truth, but then you're going to turn around and question everything I say. Now, who's being difficult? If I tell you my truth, there is no room for debate or negotiation. This is my truth. So I wanted someone that was sure of themselves. I needed someone that was juggling all of the other trappings of life to say, oh, hey, on top of my husband, my kid, my dealership, my family, I still have other things that interest me too. So I empowered Roxanne to take control, and she did. And I have 9 Roxanne books. So Roxanne just like, listen, I'm not here to play with you. And Dessert Novella is saying, let's play. And then Coffee Fairytales said, but don't you want some romance? And I'm like, yes. So all of those boxes that people put when they're doing a survey, all of my stories are checking them off. Now, you might not find romance inside of Dessert Novella. You're going to find some good fun-loving sex, some low down and dirty sex sometimes, but it's going to be so much fun that you can find yourself getting lost in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when Coffee Fairy Tales stepped to the forefront, I was like, oh God. I said, they're gonna think I'm out of my ever-loving mind. But Coffee is whispering a love story. Like this one right here,
Mm-hmm.
one of my friends, who's one of the characters. He's the decaffeinated coffee. And
Ah.
he's decaffeinated, but he's telling you a love story. He's a guy that's saying, hey, don't believe what you think you see. Because guys have hunger, desires, longing. Also,
Mm-hmm.
it could be that person that got away from them.
Mm.
Have the courage or the gumption to speak up. And then let's say a chance encounter, and that person that you might have liked years ago steps out of the shadows and steps back into your life. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to stay on the sidelines and sit there and mumble and fiddle with your hands? Or are you going to step up and say, you know what? I've been waiting for you.
Mm.
I've been waiting for you. I've missed you.
Mm.
I want to tell you something. And one of the story that I just showed you of my friend, the woman inside the story is sort of caught off guard by his proclamation.
Wow.
He said, I've been waiting. And he said, I knew that if God gave me the favor to ever be in your company once more, I won't squander it. Because, when you're young and in love, it's different versus
Mm-hmm.
being emboldened and saying, you know what? Have you heard of the hereafter? Then you know what I'm here after. I want you.
Ah.
I want you. I want you and everything that goes with it. I want you. If you want me, we can do this. So love stories can still be written and can be had. I just happen to be a beautiful woman of color that's telling you a love story. Don't dismiss or discount the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people say, well, I had one person say to me, well, how do you know about love stories? Everybody knows that love stories were written by other races. And I sat there. It's like, other races.
Mm-hmm.
I say, so I'm imagining my love stories. So you're telling me, even in my imagination, you're trying to keep me under your thumb?
That's right.
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. And after he made his statement, he officially became blocked by
Very
me.
good.
He
Very good.
officially, I was like, oh, we're not going to play that game, boys and girls.
Mm-mm.
That's
Mm-mm.
an age-old game that we've already done that. No more.
Mm-hmm.
New
Mm-hmm.
time, it's a new era. We're being ushered in. I don't want anybody to tell me how I should love. I want to tell you, this is what I want to encounter. This is what I wish for and I dream. And it comes from my heart. And if by chance you're not down with me telling you a love story, I am so not offended. Next.
I love it. Confidence. You can have it all. You can have sex. You can have romance. You can have a story that represents you. You can have things that you enjoy that we wouldn't normally connect with romance. And it is a compelling and interesting and memorable story that gives us an experience, that only you can do, Camille. This is just amazing.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. But before we get out of here, tell us about your podcast when we can see it. Tell us how we can purchase your books, how we can follow you on social media, and any other things that you have coming up.
Well, you can go to my website. It's Camille St. Charles, Mississippi.com. And from the website, it'll allow you to go anywhere. You can find out information about me. You can see a couple of interviews that Kimberly and I did. You can go behind the scenes. You can find out about my Roxanne books. You get to find out what's coming up next, because my podcast, it's an audio podcast. You don't see me tell the stories. I just tell you the stories. You just hit play, you just press play, and it just proceeds to tell you a naughty little story. But get your manners right now. If by chance you easily offend, violence and vulgarity troubles you, these are not the stories for you. But the Coffee Fairy Tales, you can go to coffeefairytales.com. You can order a book. We're coming out with accessories, and this is just volume 1. Yes, we're coming out with accessories. They're going to blow your mind. So
I love it.
It's for the coffee connoisseurs of the world, because interesting fact, fun fact, water is number 1. It's the number 1 beverage all over the world.
Yes.
Water. Coffee is number 2.
That's right.
Google it. I'm not making up anything. And you can Google me if you want to find out or see some things that I've done, places I've been, people I've talked with. Just Google me, Camille St. Charles, Mississippi, or just go to the website and all of that stuff will come up. And you can see me on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Yeah, Camille St. Charles on all of those platforms. And you get to encounter and see, and you get to see what's going on with me in the world of Coffee Fairy Tales, because I'm promoting that so much now, because I want world domination, Kimberly. World domination.
And you are going to have it.
The idea, when it showed up, I was like, what? And then when my book first made it to me, and I just sat there and I looked at it, and I started crying, because I was like, God, you heard my plea, and my baby turned out better than I had imagined. You know, when something shows up better than what you had dreamed it to be, that's a thing of beauty right there.
That is, and that is an absolute blessing. Absolute blessing. Thank you so much, Camille St. Charles, for being with us. We hope that you will join us again. We would love to continue this conversation. I can't wait to dig into my copy and have a chance to read it and get some coffee fairy tale love in my life, because dessert novellas was everything. But we do look forward to speaking with you again.
Yes. Drink some coffee.
I have to. You got me all excited.
Stop it. Definitely. It's an exciting time, for coffee just comes to life and whispers you a love story, and all the people. Now, I'm not saying that every book that I make, but it's just, this was the original idea, and all the faces, except for 1 or 2, are all people of color.
I love it.
I was like, okay. And I said, well, if you don't like people of color, this is not the book for you. I'm not offended, but you still drink coffee every day. You're wasting my time. If that's all you have, you're wasting my time,
And as you said, coffee is number 2.
Number 2.
But thank you, Camille St. Charles, for being here. Thank you guys for tuning into the Kim B. Davis Show. I hope that you're very welcome. I hope that you will join us on our next episode. You can find me everywhere on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Threads, LinkedIn. Everywhere is Kimberly Bachelor Davis. You can hear the show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Wisdom. You can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. You can see this show at youtube.com/Kimberly Bachelor Davis. Thank you again for tuning in. And I hope to see you on our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.
Magnificent. Thank you.
Thank you.